Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome all who have found time today to join us for the first and only webinar for applicants preparing proposals for the third call in the POLONEZ BIS funding program. My name is Jolanta Palowska. I have a pleasure of being the coordinator of the program here in Poland at the National Science Center. I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the National Science Center, my own, and also our guests and colleagues. Today we are going to talk to you about the offer we have for you, the POLONEZ BIS program. The presentation will start with some formal remarks, but then we have a special guest for you because I'm joined today by Barbara Uszczyńska-Ratajczak, who is the former POLONEZ fellow and who is going to share with us her experiences with the program.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And with me also is Anna Fust, who is one of the scientific coordinators here at the National Science Center. And she will share with us her knowledge and description of the evaluation process in the POLONEZ BIS program.
Good afternoon.
As you probably noticed, this webinar is being recorded. We are going to publish this recording on National Science Center's YouTube channel, together with all the presentations that we will be sharing with you. There is no need to make print screens. The agenda for the day is as follows. I will start with a couple of slides to explain what POLONEZ BIS is all about. I will present the funding offer. Then I will talk a little bit about the researcher profile and eligibility conditions, and then about the profile and eligibility conditions for the host institutions. I will then give the floor to Barbara, who will talk about her experience with POLONEZ. Then we will spend some time on proposal evaluation. And after that, we will give the floor to you, and we will open the question and answer session. To make the question and answer session run smoothly for all of us, we would like you to use the Q&A mode. You can see now on the screen that if you look in the bottom right corner of your screens, you should see a question mark. If you click on this question mark and make it blue, this will put you in the question and answer mode. The chat option will also be open throughout this webinar. So I think at this point, without further ado, we can start the first presentation. So this is all about POLONEZ BIS, which is a postdoctoral fellowship program in Poland, a fellowship that involves international mobility and skills training. We've already gone through the agenda, so I'll skip this slide very quickly. And let me tell you about POLONEZ BIS. It is, first of all, a grant program which brings together the funds of the National Science Center in Poland and the funds of the European Commission. We do this under the Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Program under Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. And this is the program that we offer to researchers at any career stage. We offer bottom-up funding for research projects. This involves also the full-time employment for the principal investigator. And of course, this is available to all eligible researchers. So we'll be explaining later on the conditions for research experience and for mobility. Why are we involved in programs like that? Because we believe that the program is very beneficial to all the researchers. It not only offers you an opportunity to develop as a researcher, but also to gain experience in independent management of the project. The offer we have allows you to combine research with transferable skills training and also some intersectoral exposure. We believe that it is an additional benefit of the project that we create opportunities for the transfer of knowledge between the researcher and his or her host institution, but also between academic and non-academic sectors. And last but not least, we believe that the offer allows you to create research teams. And because of that, new cooperations can also be started at the host institutions. So what is our recruitment plan? We follow the bottom-up approach. That is, the choice of the research topic is up to you. To guide you in those choices, the National Science Center has 25 thematic panels. And it is up to you in which you are going to prepare your research. We offer 24-month-long fellowships. They are all at Polish host institutions. And those institutions are also up to your choice. They can be academic or non-academic. Altogether, we are prepared to fund 120 research positions for experienced scientists, and our plan is to do it in 3 calls for proposals. All of those calls will have transparent procedures, objective assessment criteria, and the proposals will be reviewed by international peer review panels. So where are we in terms of the call timeline? This is the 3rd and the last call under the POLONEZ BIS program. We opened the call in mid-September. You can submit your proposals till mid-December. The funding decisions, so the whole evaluation process will be completed by June next year. And we expect the awarded grants to start either on the 1st of September or the 1st of October or the 1st of November next year. In December, all the fellows recruited in this call will meet here in Krakow for the first kickoff meeting. This is the 3rd call, as I mentioned. So let me give you just a little bit of information about the previous calls. In POLONEZ BIS 1, we allocated around 11 million euros and received 151 proposals. We were able to fund 50 fellows with a success rate slightly above 33%. In POLONEZ BIS 2, the allocation of funds was 12.5 million of euros. We received 153 proposals, and the evaluation is still in progress. The results will be published at the beginning of December. POLONEZ BIS 3, the 3rd call, about which we are going to talk today, has the allocation of funds of almost 6 million. And proposal submission is in progress. So you can see that the competition might be a bit fiercer this time with the allocation that we have. Talking about money, what is the funding offer for you? The budget of a typical individual grant consists of 4 parts. And when you look at the bigger pie on the left, the blue part is the PI's salary, and these are the total costs before taxes and deductions. Now this salary, this is the maximum amount you can get, but this salary is composed of 4 possible elements. First of all, living allowance, which is funded by the European Commission. Then the mobility allowance, which is funded by the National Science Center. And these two elements of the PI's salary is what everybody will get. But if you come to Poland with your family, that is your partner or your spouse or with your children, and they will stay with you here in Poland for at least 3 months, you will also be entitled for family allowance. And also, if you have special needs in terms of impairments of disabilities, then there is a special needs allowance that you can also claim. So these two elements, the family allowance and special needs allowance, will only be paid to those applicants who are eligible for them. When you look at the left part of the bigger pie, you will notice that there are some sums there for research costs and indirect costs. And these two elements will change depending on what you plan to do in the grant, because the research costs, quite obviously, will be connected with particular research plans. So there is a cap on the research costs. And the cap has been set at 100,000 euros. And this includes the salaries of the project team and also other costs that you may find necessary in the project. The indirect costs are the 20% overheads on the salary plus research costs. And there's also a separate category for special indirect costs of open access publications, and this equals 2% of your budget. So the maximum project budget, if you claim the maximum amount in each category, that would come up to over 260,000 euros. So let's take a look at the eligible cost of research. So we're now in the yellow part of the pie. What's important is that in this project, we expect you to have a mentor, and the mentor can also be paid salary, and there's a limit on that. As I mentioned before, salaries of other investigators that you recruit or assign to the team are also eligible direct costs of the project. You also have an option to hire or grant scholarships to students. So this may be something that you may want to consider. There's also a list of other direct costs. Basically, POLONEZ BIS is a mobility grant, so we do not fund large equipment. There is some amount can be set for small equipment costing up to 2,500 euros per unit. And there are also some other elements listed here that I will not mention. You can find the full list of eligible direct costs in the call text in the guide for applicants as well. When you look at this list of the eligible costs, you may see that there seems to be one category that is missing from here, and that's the category for training. And the reason that this category is missing from the yellow box is that, yes, we are going to offer you 3 to 5 sessions of transferable skills training, but these will be organized and paid for by the National Science Center, so they will generate no extra cost on grant. And we will even pay your travel costs to those trainings. So this is a cherry on top of the cake, so to speak. Now, let me now talk about how to prepare a proposal that will be easy to read for the funders, for the experts, and that will bring you closer to getting the grant. So the first thing that we strongly recommend you to do before you start is to read the call text. The announcement of the call has got a lot of parts to it, and we understand that this is a lot of reading, but it's really important that you go through the documents, through the frequently asked questions to get a good idea of what this grant is all about. And when you look at the proposal itself, you will notice that in the proposal and in the fellowship, there are three main actors. So you have the principal investigator, and that's you. There's quite obviously a research project, which is your job description for the next 2 years. And there's the host institution, who is going to be your employer for the duration for the grant. So we have structured the POLONEZ BIS proposal in such a way that each of those actors has a part in it. And you are given space to write about yourself in terms of what you have achieved so far, but also in terms of what you're planning and what your goals are. You quite obviously have a lot of space to write about your research project. And there is also a special part for the host institution to describe what kind of benefits they can offer to you and what kind of support they can provide you throughout the grant. So when we look at the research project, the parts that you will find in the proposal will be, first of all, the NCN panels that you have to choose. And this is, in other words, the topic eligibility. We'll ask you to provide an abstract, two descriptions of the project, a short description and a detailed description. And I think Anna is going to say a bit more about this. But the reason we ask you for two descriptions is that we do not have a pre-proposal and full proposal. This is a one-stage call. But at the different stages of evaluation, different texts are read and assessed by the experts. We will also ask you to give us an idea of the research tasks. We'll ask you to evaluate the ethics issues in your proposal. Quite obviously, we'll ask you to plan what kind of resources you need, and this involves the research team, but also the budget, and we will ask you to prepare a data management plan. As far as the principal investigator goes, we have a section in the proposal which is dedicated to eligibility issues. There's a section where we ask you about your academic track record. And there's also a special section which we call Career Development Plan. And this is the section where you describe your goals. But this is also a section where we ask you to think about what kind of impact the project will have on your career. So let's talk about the principal investigator's profile for a bit. I mentioned before that there are two kinds of conditions in terms of eligibility. So the first condition is the research experience. POLONEZ BIS is a grant for PhD holders or for people who do not yet have PhDs, but who have 4 years of equivalent research experience. And what is important is that the research experience must be documented in the proposal. So when you open up the POLONEZ BIS proposal, you will see a place where we ask you to upload certain documents. If you are a PhD holder, we'll ask you to upload a scan of your PhD diploma. If you do not yet have a PhD, we'll ask you to upload documents which confirm 4 years of full-time research experience. We also expect the applicants to have at least one publication, either published or accepted. And in the academic track record section, there will be a place to upload a scan of this publication so that the expert can also take a look at that. There's some technical notes here on what kind of documents we require. To document your research experience, we want to see the scans of your diplomas or scans or of other documents. If those documents were not prepared in English or in Polish, we would also like you to upload the translation of those documents into Polish or English, but it doesn't have to be a sworn translation. So this should lower the preparation cost a little bit. Now, in terms of PhD diplomas, we understand that because you're coming from all over the globe, not all diplomas or degrees may be recognized in Poland. If you are in doubt about that, talk to your chosen host institution. You can also use the link that we provide in the presentation here. There's a system that our sister agency has created where you can look up the kind of qualifications you have and see whether nostrification will be necessary. Even if nostrification of your diploma is necessary, it is not necessary to apply. Okay? It may be necessary to sign the job contract after funds are granted to your proposal. So you do not have to go through the nostrification process just yet. The other important or another important condition that influences the eligibility for the call is the mobility requirement. All applicants must be ready to move to Poland for the duration of the fellowship. And we also, the call also invites those researchers who have not resided, studied, or have been employed in Poland for more than 12 months during the last 3 years before the call launch. And again, in the section dedicated to principal investigator in the proposal, you will see a special place for compliance with the eligibility criteria. You will find a table there where we ask you to describe 36 months between the 15th September 2019 and the 14th September 2020. We ask you to describe where you were during this time without any gaps. And what's important, we also ask you to document those stays. So for each stay described in the table, it would be ideal if you could provide a scan of some kind of supporting document. It could be a work contract, a study certificate, perhaps a proof of payment of tuition fees, residence permit, flat rental contracts, basically anything that has got your name on it, dates of stay, so that we can verify that the periods concerned and the countries and the types of stays that you have put in the table are really documented. For these documents, we are not requiring any translation, but if the documents are handwritten, as it sometimes happens, or if you use a different calendar or you do not use Arabic numbers, then we kindly ask you to circle the relevant dates in the documents you provide and insert a note with the conversion of the date into the same format as you have entered in the table. It is worth mentioning at this point that POLONEZ BIS also gives special support to researchers at risk. And by researchers at risk, we mean all researchers who are experiencing threats to their lives, liberty, research career, also those who are forced to flee from their countries or perhaps have been displaced because of threats or conflict. We encourage you to apply. All researchers at risk who were part of a procedure of obtaining refugee status under the Geneva Convention, and because of that spent more than 12 months in Poland, they do not have to count the time spent as part of this procedure towards the mobility limit, 12-month limit. We also have special support measures for those researchers who had to leave Ukraine as a result of war, and therefore are eligible for temporary protection under Council implementing decision taken at the beginning of March 2020. So if you are one of those researchers and you came to Poland on or after the 24th of February this year, even if you were employed, the time of employment and the time spent in Poland for refugees from Ukraine does not count towards the 12-month limit. We have also simplified the eligibility check for refugees from Ukraine who had to relocate without relevant documents, and there's more information about in the guides, but also in the proposal itself as you go in the system. Coming back to the principal investigator's profile, it is not just about the eligibility. By applying to Polonez BIS, you also make a commitment to reside in Poland for the entire project funding term, to participate in at least 3 two-day training courses, and also to carry out an intersectoral secondment phase outside of the host institution. We do not really have time to go into details about secondments during this webinar, but the secondments have been described in detail in Guide for Applicants on page 21. So please refer to that. When in doubt, write us an email and we'll explain. During the funding term, the PI also makes some commitments not to do certain things. So please, when you go through the call text, when you go through the guide, also pay attention to the things that we are expecting you not to do. And because there are some things that we're expecting you not to do, there will inevitably also be some ineligible applicants. So first of all, you cannot apply for this call if you were previously funded as Polonez or Polonez BIS fellow. You cannot apply in this call if you were a principal investigator in a research project which you already carried at a Polish institution during the 3 years before the launch of this call. And it doesn't matter if you were funded by NCN or by other funder from Poland or abroad. Also, you cannot apply for Polonez BIS in this call if you have, or if you're planning also to apply in any other of NCN calls which were launched on 15th September 2020. For those of you who perhaps applied in Polonez BIS 2 but received a rejection decision, you can resubmit your proposal in Polonez BIS 3, but you have to pay attention to the dates because you can only resubmit your project after your rejection decision is no longer in force. So again, if in doubt, please call us and we'll explain. If you have submitted another proposal to another funder, because very often the calls do not overlap. So if you have a proposal on the same or very similar topic in the pipeline somewhere else, in Poland or abroad, it is still under evaluation, you may apply for Polonez BIS. But if both proposals are funded, you will then have to make up your mind which one you will choose to carry out. And now there's time for some fun, and there's time to check how closely you were following the eligibility rules. So yes, let me introduce another participant of this webinar. This is Marie. Marie moved to Poland on the 20th of November last year, and she has been employed as a researcher at the best university since then. She has an excellent research idea. She would like to apply for POLONEZ BIS 3, so this is the call that opened on the 15th September. And now the question is to you that we will put up to voting in a minute. Does Marie comply with the mobility requirement? You'll have three options: yes, no, or not enough information. So if you could vote now. Okay, the votes are coming. Don't be shy. I'm sure we can come up to 50% of voters here. 37, okay. 39, do we get 40? 43, okay. So can we see 46? Yes, 52, okay. I don't, can you see the results? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry, it was up to me. Okay. Does Mary comply with the mobility requirement? Most of you answered yes, and yes, this is true. Marie spent about 10 months in Poland, so 10 is less than 12 months, so she is eligible. She complies with the mobility requirement. So here comes another question to you. Now, it's still the same Marie. She's been employed as a researcher at the best university since 20 November 2021. Does she comply with the criteria for an experienced researcher? And again, there are three options for you to answer. So let's take a vote. % of you voted. 36. Let's give it a bit more time. Okay, 41. 42%. Can we have 50? Okay, let's stop at 44. Okay, you were not that sure, but the majority has got it. The description did not give you enough information to be able to answer this question. Let's take a look at the question again. We know that Mary has been employed as a researcher, but we do not have enough information to know whether she is a PhD holder, or if she's not, if her experience at research is at least 4 years of equivalent. So this time it was not that easy to answer. Okay, let's move on and look at another proposal section that involves principal investigator, but takes a different look than the eligibility section. That is the career development plan. The career development plan is a document where we ask you what your career goals are, and we'll also ask you to think about how this fellowship will help you reach them. So this In other words, is a section where we're asking you to assess your skills at this point, your expectations of the grant, and we would also like you to answer the question where you would like to be by the end of your POLONEZ BIS project. We have prepared this section in a rather detailed way. There are lots of questions there, but please take the time to go through this questionnaire. There's also a rather broad description of how to answer those questions, how to approach the self-assessment, and this is included in the guide for applicants starting on page 19. We ask you questions about your previous project experience, your intersectoral experience, if any, and give you 4 sets of skills, knowledge, and behaviors for self-assessment. And it is important that you take a very close look at this section, because this section will also help you to identify the possible gaps that your POLONEZ BIS fellowship may help to complete. So after the self-assessment questionnaire, we ask you to define the goals, which perhaps should address some of the knowledge and skill gaps that you identified in self-assessment. Then we ask you if you can see some ways to share your expertise. So for all those skills that you marked as your strengths, these quite naturally should become your strengths for the transfer of knowledge question. We ask you about your planned intersectoral secondment, because it is important for POLONEZ BIS project to allow you to give you space to break out of the academic bubble. And at the very end, we ask you to also define the long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And then how you plan to reach others to tell them about your results. So we ask you about the dissemination to other scientists, but also we ask you to plan outreach activities for the general public. Make sure that your career development plan is discussed with the prospective mentor, because she or he should help you to make realistic goals, measurable goals, but he or she should also be able to tell you what resources there are at the host institution to help you reach the goals that you plan for yourself. Let us now look at the host institution and what the proposal what parts of the proposal, what elements of the proposal are dedicated to the host institution. So I would first of all like to look at the eligibility issues. I will not talk a lot about mentors' research track record. We already mentioned the fact that POLONEZ BIS asks you to choose a mentor who is employed by the host institution, and the experts will also look at his or her career and research track and mentoring experience. But the description of those elements is easy to find both in the guide and also in the evaluation rules for the project. We will then have a short look at the host institution capacity form. But let's start with the eligibility. The host institution profile is pretty broad here. All legal entities which have a registered office in Poland are generally eligible as POLONEZ BIS host institutions. And it doesn't matter whether they are in the academic sector or outside of this sector. A list of eligible legal entities is given in the call text. It is also given in the guide for applicants. And if you are not sure of what your institution is, what kind of institution it is, ask your mentor, ask at the host institution. They will know how they describe themselves in technical terms. What's important to remember is that the POLONEZ BIS proposal should describe only one host institution, and in the online submission system, we also use the term participating entity. This is the institution which will employ the principal investigator or the applicant later on. Of course, the fact that you can only describe one host institution in your proposal doesn't mean that you cannot cooperate with other institutions. Of course, you can. You can cooperate with institutions in Poland. You can cooperate with institutions abroad. You can plan short-term secondments. You can plan study visits. The only exception is cooperation with institutions located in the Russian Federation, and this is not allowed. Host institutions are generally asked to provide additional documents if they do not belong to the public finance sector, or they do not receive core funding for research, or if the funding from the National Science Center will constitute state aid for them. So again, if in doubt, ask your mentor, ask at the host institution, because they will know what kinds of documents should be prepared and also uploaded in the system together with the proposal. What you should keep in mind is that the profile of the host institution you select should match the nature of the research project. And it would also be a good fit to your profile and professional goals. So it is important that you talk about the mentor, and that you, before you take the final decision about your host institution choice. The host institution has to make a number of commitments, and those hosting arrangements should all be described in the host institution capacity form. One of those commitments is the mentor. The mentor that you choose should already be employed by the host institution at the date of the call launch. And in the proposal, you can only indicate one mentor who will be responsible for the support both for you and for the scientific dimension of your project. This does not mean that you cannot cooperate with more than one person, but for the purposes of this proposal, only one mentor can be indicated, and only one mentor can be described in the academic research track record. The mentor's experience and expertise should be relevant to the research field, and this is quite obvious, but it should also be relevant to your career stage. We do not set any formal requirements as for the degree or the title of the mentor, and we understand that sometimes where the applicant is not an early career researcher, the expertise of the mentor may match the expertise of the applicant. That's okay, that's fine. If this is your case, then in your career development plan, perhaps you should focus more on the knowledge transfer element of your project. As mentioned before, there's a number of commitments that the host institution also has to make. So we already talked about the employment of the principal investigator for the entire fellowship. It has to be a full-time employment contract, and you will be working exclusively to carry out the project and to carry out the training task. The mentor must also be employed throughout the entire fellowship funding firm, but we are flexible. We understand that sometimes it may be necessary to change the mentor during the project lifetime. People change plans, People may be leaving the institution for a variety of reasons. So it is possible to change the person of the mentor, but the position of the mentor must be occupied throughout the entire fellowship funding term. What's important is that the host institution has to provide you with free, full access to facilities and infrastructure to carry out your project. They also have to appoint or employ an administrative officer who will help you in the day-to-day management of the grant. They have to reach an agreement with you how to use at least 25% of the indirect costs of the overheads. And they also have to support you in promoting your research results, open access publishing, and data management. Some host institutions may turn out to be not eligible in some specific cases. First of all, a host institution will be ineligible if it employed the PI within the 3 years before the proposal submission deadline. And a host institution may also be ineligible if it granted the PI the PhD, unless between the PhD award and the application in the POLONEZ BIS call, the PI spent at least 3 years away from the institution and can document some postdoctoral fellowship or fellowships outside Poland. And again, we will ask you to document such postdoctoral fellowships in part 2 of the compliance with the eligibility criteria part of your proposal. So now it's time for another quiz. Help Mary choose the POLONEZ BIS host institution. As we know, Mary has been employed as a researcher at the Best University since November last year. Is the Best University eligible as Mary's POLONEZ BIS host? And you can start voting now. %29 of you voted. Can we have a bit more? 34. 37. Thank you for your votes. 38. 39. 40. Okay, let's stop at 40%. And the answer is no. The Best University is not eligible, quite obviously, because it employed Mary. What will Mary do? Let's look at Mary's eligibility after the 3 quizzes. Mary can apply for POLONEZ BIS because she complies with the mobility requirement, and if she can document the required research experience. So hopefully, because she was already employed as a researcher, she either has the PhD or an equivalent research experience. So she is eligible. She can apply, but not with the Best University. Mary will have to look for a different host institution. Where should she look? She can check some reliable sources of information about research institutions in Poland, and this is Euraxis or researchinpoland.org. But she can also go to the POLONEZ BIS website, click on the partner search tool, and go through the host institution expressions of interest that have been published there. So this is what we are asking Mary to do. This is what we are asking you to do, or we're recommending you to do if you have not yet chosen your host institution. Each host institution will have to complete the host institution capacity form that we mentioned before. And this is an opportunity for the institutions to present certain aspects of the research environment that will not be described in any other part of the proposal. So it is also an institution's answer to your career development plan. So again, there's a detailed description and detailed guidance for this section in the guide for applicants. But basically, we're asking the host institutions not to repeat the information that's already given in other sections and to demonstrate their strong potential to deliver the planned results, but also to support you throughout your project. There are some technical points here that I will not go through because we'll be publishing the presentation. You will be able to refer to those points as well later on. So let's look at the complete proposal. It has sections on the research project, which is your job description for the coming 2 years. It has questions about you, the principal investigator. It has questions about the host institution and how good it will be in terms of the environment for your research project. What the experts are looking for, what the National Science Center is looking for, is the best fit of these 3 actors. Does it look challenging? Yes. But we will support you all the way. We have already done it with 109 POLONEZ fellows. And without boasting, I think I will now give the floor and the screen to Barbara Uszczyńska-Ratajczak, who can tell you how POLONEZ changed her life as a researcher and as an individual. So Barbara, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon again. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure and also an honor to be part of this webinar. So I would like to tell you about my personal experience with POLONEZ, but to understand what is my experience, you have to know some basic facts. You have to know the context and basic facts from my life. So in June 2016, my daughter was born, and when she was 4 months old, I decided to apply for POLONEZ fellowship. So basically, 8 months later, I received one, and this is POLONEZ. So POLONEZ is the first project I implemented when I came back from the maternity leave. Before POLONEZ, so just to give you some idea how I selected my host institute. So before POLONEZ, I was mainly working in labs run by men. So I decided that since my family situation has changed, I should also look for different mentor, a successful female scientist who is professionally and also family oriented. And this is how I found the world-leading expert lab, like world-leading group in mitochondrial research. And because at that time my husband got a job offer in Warsaw, so basically my search was, I narrowed down my search to Warsaw. So I joined Center of Novel Technologies at the University of Warsaw, and in practice, this meant a transition from moving from Barcelona to Warsaw with my family. Because I chose the PI, so the host, not the expertise, I had to undergo a transition also at the scientific level. So basically, I had to transform from computational biologist with expertise in annotation of London coding RNAs in human and mouse genome and become more molecular biologist, studying principles of mitochondrial protein import in zebrafish. So this was a bold move, as pointed out by the reviewers, especially that they also had to fulfill maternity responsibilities at the same time. So the POLONEZ fellowship had impact at three different aspects of my life, which includes self-improvement, networking, and also science. So I will start from the personal development. So the POLONEZ training included like 5 different blocks of training, 5 different workshops, and although all of them were really really helpful, I would like to acknowledge 2 of them. And one of them, surprisingly, is the intellectual property workshop. This is the first workshop I took during my POLONEZ fellowship, but this was like, for me, it was like a deep water jump. I mean, we were discussing different things from creative problem solving to IPR protection, and also some technological stuff with futurology. So this was like a bit overwhelming, and this was the first moment I realized that I might not be able to, to accomplish my goals and also to complete the training. So I had to look overwhelmed, because then the guy who was leading, Kevin, who was leading the workshop, asked me if I were okay. And for some reason, I was very honest with him, so I shared all my thoughts, and he said, okay, try to get some rest, and I hope to see you tomorrow. So during the second day, during the lunch break, actually, he approached me and he asked me, basically, he told me it's perfectly fine to feel overwhelmed, but also, instead of worrying, maybe I should try to think of my limited availability as of another problem to solve. Because he told me, as an engineer, I should be able to do it. So let's try to think about that, and I should learn doing whatever I can with what I have. And there are some techniques that allow to do that. And he gave me, actually, I was really surprised, because he gave me some example of techniques that I could employ to achieve this goal. And he introduced me with mind mapping. I don't know if you know this concept, but I didn't know that it could be applied for this. So mind mapping helps you to plan the project, and also to establish a to-do list, identify weak points of your project and address them. Also assign and delegate tasks and create a timeline. So this was actually very very useful. And since then, I'm using my mind map, so I find it really, really helpful. And following Kevin's advice, I put it in the most central part of my flat, and also of my office. So it looks a bit disorganized, but it helps me to save a lot of time. So I can, whatever I'm doing, if I'm having like a phone calls or online meetings, or if I'm cleaning or cooking, I can keep eye on my project, and this is very helpful. Of course, the lower part is used by my daughter, at least the one at home. So another life-changing discovery was the second workshop, working with others. Actually, this was my last workshop. It's second on the slide. So as expected, we were discussing negotiations, like coaching, mentoring, but also collaborations. And at that time, actually, I was struggling with very difficult collaboration that was taking its toll on me. And I was lucky enough to be sitting at the same table with Dave Filipovich, who was leading this workshop. And I kind of complained. I said, like, look, this is helpful, but my impression is that it works mainly in like simulated environment. I am trying to apply all the things that you are suggesting in the real life, but somehow it's not working for me. And he said, like, it's okay, you know, there are different collaborations and not of them are excellent, but maybe you are not expressing your expectations properly. So what you should do, you have to learn how to clearly communicate what you need or want, and also sometimes make sure this happens. This is simple. You have to, you know, you have to understand that and try to apply. And I was like, I mean, it cannot be that simple. And he said, just give it a try. And I did. And I have to tell you that in like 80-90% of the cases, it's actually working. And I can give you an example how I'm using it in practice. So recently I was invited to become a member of the evaluation panel, but unfortunately my daughter had a broken leg at that time and she needed my attention. So to seek a compromise, I said, like, I'm happy to help, but either I take her with me or I join online because there is no other possibility. And surprisingly, I actually got informed that I can bring my daughter to that institute. And I also they will make a parking spot available for us, for our convenience. So it was very, very helpful. And I would not, you know, before I was not courage enough and feeling comfortable enough to clearly state those kind of things like expectations. So another benefit is the networking. So beneficial aspect, definitely networking. And I was able to expand my network of contacts by interacting with different researchers within and outside SEND. I also gained a lot from the study visits. I was able to establish strong links with researchers at the international level. Although here I'm showing mainly Polonez fellows, but I was also able to interact. I mean, the fellowship allowed me to interact with many people outside of Polonez. My expanded network actually became an excellent base for further collaborations and research. And here's one of the examples. Together with my colleague Michał Turek, I am collaborating in a project which aims to understand epigenetic regulation of exotherapiogenesis in C. elegans. And my task here is to provide expertise in non-coding genome and also high-throughput studies. Another example is MidGuest that is coordinated by Carlo Bascotto. I met Carlo at SEND. So MidGuest, it's a new doctoral network that is funded within the framework of Marii Skłodowska-Curie. And it actually unites world-class academic excellence with private sector expertise in nucleic acid chemistry and mitochondrial therapeutics. And the goal is to enhance innovative treatments to mitigate mitochondrial dysfunction and human diseases. So Carlo invited me to become an associated partner. And my goal is to provide a bioinformatics training and bioinformatics support. And I will also be able, and I also be responsible for course supervising a PhD student. So there is a website, and I encourage you to check it because this is a really, really cool project. And speaking about science, there is also huge impact at the scientific level. My Polonez is was about mitochondria. I'm not sure if you know, but mitochondrial proteome has a dual origin. So 13 proteins are encoded by mitochondrial genome, but the vast majority, like 99% of them, are encoded by the nucleus. So in practice, this means that they have to be imported somehow from the cytosol to mitochondria. And there are two ways. So first, well-known mitochondrial import route, where the protein is first synthesized in the cytosol and then imported into mitochondria. And in my opinion, more straightforward one when the import is combined with the protein synthesis. However, this is not really well explored route in higher vertebrates. We know more about this in yeast. So what I assumed in my project, so the hypothesis was that in unperturbed conditions, more or less, the co-translational import is working to the same extent as post-translational one. But another major assumption was that if we block the protein import, and we will cause the induce the mitochondrial stress, co-translational import will work to restore the homeostasis for the cell. And it turned out that I was completely wrong. I mean, the hypothesis was actually opposite. So the co-translational import is a very specialized path that becomes even more, so the protein is on the mitochondrial surface under mitochondrial stress. The population of those proteins at the mitochondrial surface, it becomes even more restricted. So with this, I had to completely revise everything that I assumed to be true. And I managed to, despite the struggle, I managed to accomplish my goals, but I wouldn't be able to do it without the network and the support of the host that I got during and after the fellowship. So the results were accepted for publication, and they will be available next week. I would like to also acknowledge the family allowance. This is very important. For us, I mean, with this money, I was able to put my daughter into very good private kindergarten. And because we do not have any family, didn't have any family in Warsaw, so it had a special meaning because I rested assured that my daughter is safe and she's having fun while I'm working. So this was very very important. And I was also able, I mean, my experience with Polonez helped me to apply for other types of grants. So 2 years later, I received Opus project. And this year, I also received Untitled Bis. So my experience with interview, particularly here, was very, very useful. I mean, the expertise I gained during Polonez. So in 2020, I became a PI, so I got the independent position. And my lab has a mixed expertise. And lessons learned from Polonez helped me to have an overall view on the dry and wet lab sides of our projects. So these are the people who were involved in this project. And to conclude, in my case, Polonez was more than a fellowship. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to take them during the Q&A session. And for now, I would like to hand it over to Anna Fust, who will walk you through the process of evaluation. Anna, the screen is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the floor, for the voice, and thank you very much for this great presentation. As my colleagues before said, my name is Anna Fust, and I'm the NCN coordinator, and I'm working in life sciences. And directly in Polonez BIS program, I have the pleasure to coordinate the whole evaluation process, and this is why I'm here today to describe it and introduce it briefly and shortly to let you know how does it look like. And on the screen, you can see the diagram, which shows the following procedures which are adopted in evaluation process in Polonez BIS call. And in general, it consists of 2 stages, where the first stage is the qualification stage, and after that, there is the second stage, which is specialist evaluation. The first Okay, the first, we may say, pre-stage of this merit evaluation process is the eligibility check, which is conducted by NCN officers and which aims to confirm the eligibility for both the applicant and the host institution, what was mentioned before. And each proposal which passes the eligibility check is sent to 2 expert panel members who assess the project individually in the OSF system. And this part of evaluation is based on the short description of the project and, of course, all additional information provided in the project. And after that, expert team members meet together during the first expert panel meeting. Experts discuss project and choose the set of projects which pass to the second stage of evaluation, and of course those which are going to be rejected at this stage. And all shortlisted proposals are evaluated in the second stage of evaluation by external reviewers, and this part of assessment is made by scientists from outside Poland and not member of the expert panel, and scientists who are specialized in the project subject. And if there is a need, proposals are also evaluated by ethical experts who conduct the assessment of the ethical aspects of the project in relation to the planned research tasks. And the expert panel members then meet again. Experts verify external reviews and interview the candidates. And based on that, expert team decide on the ranking list of the project, which are recommended for funding and those which are going to be rejected at this stage of evaluation. And at the same time, expert team decide on the waiting list of well-rated projects, which fall outside available funds allocated for the call. And those projects from waiting list could be funded in case of any applicant resignations of the ranking list. And of course, all applicants will receive feedback from experts. And this is in general, this is the general description of the evaluation procedure which we follow in the POLONEZ BIS call. And now I would like to move to the evaluation criteria section. Okay, and what I would like to start is that the evaluation form for expert consists of 2 parts. In the first part of the form, there are 6 questions which are assessed with scores, and the final assessment of them will reflect the final scoring of the project. And after that, there are also a few general yes and no questions, which also have to be assessed, and in case of any negative assessment, some of them may affect the final project rejection. In the first part of the form, which is divided into 4 general parts, the questions regard to the general project assessment, the qualification of the principal investigator, and the assessment of the environment, so of the mentor and the host institution. And in the last part, there is also the part connected with the assessment of the potential impact of the project on the future career development of the principal investigator. And under the project assessment, there are a few questions about the scientific quality of the research project, and experts are asked to assess if the project is prepared in reliable manners and if it fulfills the criteria of scientific project. Additionally, the experts assess if the project refers to the basic science area, which is defined, as you can see on the slide, as the experimental and theoretical endeavors undertaken to gain new knowledge of the foundations of phenomena and observable facts without any direct commercial use. And it's very important to remember that the National Science Center finance project, which meets the criteria of the basic research and which do not have any direct applicable character. And in the scientific quality of the research project, there are also questions about the originality and innovative nature of the project, as well as the relevance of the research methodology and work plan in relation to the scientific objectives which are planned in the project. And in the next point, experts evaluate potential for substantial international impact on the research field and the potential for dissemination of project results and research outputs within the research community and general public, including high quality research publications. And then in the next criterion, experts evaluate the qualification and scientific achievements of the principal investigator. And this assessment is made only based on the information provided in the project. Experts take into consideration the track record of the applicant, the output of previous projects, presentation to internationally established conferences, and scientific or artistic prizes and awards, as well as the membership of in the well-regarded international organizations. And moreover, experts assess other competencies of the principal investigator, like the managerial, translational, or intersectoral experience. And not only PI, but also the environment of the environment which will the place of work of the applicant is assessed in this criterion. So the supervisor, the mentor, and the host institution. In case of the mentor, here beside the scientific achievements and the track record of the mentor, also the additional experience in mentoring or supervising research is assessed by experts. And then in the next point, experts assess the host institution in terms of the relevance of its choice. The first point is then about the academic rank of the host institution and the measures taken by the host institution for providing the opportunity for integration of the applicant into the existing team. And additionally, experts take into consideration the quality of the institutional environment in terms of providing the adequate facilities and the kind of equipment and other resources, which gives the opportunity for the PI to conduct the research and to create the international networking. And another but very important aspect is the possible mutual gain from transfer of knowledge and expertise between the host institution and the applicant. And at the end of the evaluation form, experts also assess the potential impact of the project on the career development plan of the PI. So it means the potential to reaching or reinforcing the professional maturity by the applicant and impact of the acquired competences during the fellowship on the future career prospects, and of course, possibility of getting some transferable skills. And all of those criteria are going to be scored from 1 to 5, and taking into account the weight of the scores in the following criteria, finally the projects may receive maximum 100 points in the evaluation. And for each criterion, despite those points, also the justification should be provided. And what's very important and what we should remember about is that basing on the arranged threshold in POLONEZ BIS, only project which pass the score finally for at least 70 points may be recommended for funding or may be located on the waiting list. And all projects which are located below the cutoff line that are going to be rejected at the second stage of evaluation. And as I mentioned before, after the scored criteria, experts also assess some general questions regarding to additional aspects of the project. And I think that one of the most aspects which is assessed in this part of the evaluation form is the evaluation of the budget. According to NCN general rules, there are not any possibility to negotiate or change the budget of the submitted project, and the budget should be prepared in a reliable manner, and of course all expenditures planned in the project should be justified in regard to the work and scientific task planned with the project. And experts may accept the budget in the form it is presented in the project, or expert may decide to reject the project due to not justified budget. So please pay the special attention on this aspect when you are preparing your application. And additionally, there is also the data management plan section. And even if this aspect cannot cause the project rejection, we also encourage you to pay special attention in preparing this section, because in case of any doubts from the expert team in relation to the way it's planned in the project, the applicant may be asked to correct this section to provide accurate and reliable plan of data storage and management. And in the evaluation form, experts are also asked to decide on the ethical issues raised in the project, and this criterion is assessed by the expert team member on the first stage of evaluation, and if needed, by ethical experts appointed to evaluate those aspects in selected projects. And the project may be rejected on the basis of not appropriately addressed ethical issues on the second stage of evaluation process. In the ethical issue part, we have two questions regarding to use of human embryonic stem cells in this project, and both of them are necessary to select those projects we plan to use HASC in the scientific research, and those projects with positive assessment in at least one of these criteria require obtaining the additional approval from the ethical committee of the European Commission. And the last question in the evaluation form refers to interdisciplinary character of the presented research. And it's nice to remember that in POLONEZ BIS program, the interdisciplinary proposals are those which integrate any kind of information, data, techniques, tools, concepts, and theories from two or more group of disciplines as defined in NCN panels. So to sum up this part, I can say that the evaluation form is prepared in that way to enable experts to refer and evaluate all aspects of the project. And now in the last part of my presentation, I would like to also tell you a few words about the experts and reviewers who are responsible for the assessment of the project submitted in POLONEZ BIS, about their rules and their duties. The evaluation process is conducted separately and independently for each of scientific domains adopted by NCN. So for art, humanities and social sciences, physical sciences and engineering, and life sciences. And each expert team consists of experienced researchers, mainly from outside Poland, who are selected by NCN Council. Experts represent different disciplines with the following group of disciplines, but they are not necessarily specialists directly in the subject of the project. And the most important responsibilities of the expert team members are preparing the individual assessment of the applications at the first stage of evaluation process, and experts do it based on the short description of the project, and of course all additional information provided in the proposal, like the budget, the team members, and so on. Experts also are obligated to discuss all applications submitted in the call, and selecting applications recommended to the second stage of evaluation. Additionally, experts select specialist reviewers for proposals in the second stage of evaluation process with the expertise adequate to the proposal subject. Also, our expert team members conduct interviews with candidates, which are the obligatory point at the second stage of evaluation. Experts also select the applications which are recommended for funding and, of course, also those which are recommended for the waiting list. Each expert for each project is also obligated to prepare the final justification of in case of project rejection, which is finally released to the applicant with the final decision. And each expert is obligated to act according to the Code of Ethics for Experts of the National Science Center. And now I would like to point out the small difference between expert team members I have already introduced you and the reviewers. And besides the fact that they all take part in the evaluation process, there are few important significant differences in the responsibilities of those two groups of researchers and scientists. Reviewers are the specialists in the subject of the particular projects, and they are selected by the expert team members. Reviewers prepare the assessment of the project on the second stage of evaluation, basing on the detailed, so this long description of the proposal, and of course, all additional information which are also provided in the project. And reviewers evaluate proposal using the same evaluation form as experts, but they do not take part neither in the panel meetings nor in the interviews with the applicant. Usually, they assess around one or two proposals individually, and they do not have this general insight in the set of projects submitted in direct POLONEZ BIS code. And similar to experts, of course, the reviewers are obligated to act according to the Code of Ethics for Experts of National Science Center. And for each project which was recommended the second stage of evaluation, we are obligated to provide from 2 to 5 opinions from external reviewers. And additionally, in the evaluation process of POLONEZ BIS call, we have also another expert body, which is adapted to assess the ethical issues raised in the project, and those are ethical experts. And there is one ethical expert team which is appointed to work in all of those 3 scientific domains adopted by NCN. And this means that the same experts, ethical experts, may assess projects from each scientific domain. And ethical experts are also appointed by NCN Council to assess, as I said, only ethical aspects of the project at the second stage of evaluation, but they do it in relation to the planned research task and other information provided in the detailed description of the project, and of course, all additional appendixes. And ethical experts are Polish scientists with a good knowledge of any ethical requirements in science, and since there are the scientists who work in different bioethical and ethical Polish committees. And I would like to underline that ethical experts do not refer to and they do not assess merit aspects of the project. They focus only on ethical issues, expected ethical approvals in regard to the scientific assumption of the project and planned research tasks. And in general, ethical evaluation is dedicated to all projects for which experts on the first panel meeting have any doubts connected with the ethical issues, and those which are pointed by the applicant to have any ethical issues mentioned in the ethical issue form at the project preparation stage. And the role of ethical expert is to confirm that any ethical aspects have been addressed properly in the project, and in case of any doubts, ethical experts may make any kind of suggestions or recommendations how to correct or improve this ethical section in the project. And they also take part in the interviews with the candidate. And in case of any doubts connected with this aspect in the project, they have the possibility to answer them and to discuss them during the interview. And after the discussion, ethical expert made the final decision on the ethical aspect of the project. And the very important thing is that on the second stage of evaluation, the project may be rejected due to not properly addressed ethical aspect. And in POLONEZ BIS program, as I said, the applicant whose project is recommended for the second stage of evaluation are invited for interview. Okay. And there are scheduled meetings conducted remotely via telecommunication tools. And this interview lasts around 30 minutes. And within this time, the applicant has the possibility to present in general assumption of the project in 10-minute presentation. And after that, there are 10-minute time for the discussion with experts. And of course, if needed, we have also no more than 10 minutes for this additional discussion with the ethical experts. And both, just to remind, both members of the expert team and ethical experts take part in the discussion with the applicant. And the detailed information about the date and time of the interview is released to the applicant no later for 14 days before the meeting. And then also all reviews of this particular application is released to the applicant as well. So please remember that within this interview, the applicant have the possibility to answer some doubts, points, or critiques, which is raised by experts and reviewers in their opinions. And after the interview with the candidate, expert team member meet again during the second panel meeting, and then expert team made the final discussion on the ranking list of the project and choose the set of projects recommended for funding, and of course those which are going to be rejected. And for rejected projects, again, experts prepare the justification, merit-based justification of the project rejection, which is also released to the applicant with the final decision from NCN. And during the second panel meetings, experts decide on the waiting list of projects which passed the threshold of 70 points of qualification for funding, but which were not qualified on the ranking list due to limited budget of the program. And as Yola said at the beginning, the ranking list is expected to be published no later than the first half of June 2023. And in case of resignation from funding by candidates on the ranking list, applications on the waiting list may be funded, and in case of this situation, of course, the applicant will be informed by NCN. And as Yola said, in POLONEZ BIS program, we do not have any additional restrictions of resubmitted projects, what means that in case of the project rejection, you can resubmit your project in the next edition, but please remember that this is the last edition of POLONEZ BIS, so this is your last chance to do it. And of course, if you would like to resubmit your project, we encourage you to correct the project before submitting according to the recommendations and suggestions made by experts and the reviewers in their opinion. And of course, it doesn't guarantee that the project will be funded, but of course, in our opinion, it may help to make it more competitive. And that's all from my side. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention in this part of presentation regarding to the evaluation process in POLONEZ BIS. And now I would like to kindly invite you to question and answer session, and the questions you asked will be presented on the screen, and we will try to answer them.
Thank you, Anna. Indeed, thank you all for staying with us for all those three presentations. I hope you learned a lot about POLONEZ BIS, but there is still some questions. Before we start answering them, I just have a short announcement to make. That is, when we publish the recording of this webinar, on the YouTube channel. We will also publish the 3 presentations, plus at the end of the presentations, we will give you answers to all the questions in writing. So whatever we say now will also be printed out for your future reference. You'll be able to download also our answers to Q&A. We have about 30 minutes for the Q&A, but even if we do not manage to answer all the questions today, we will still include our answers in writing and let you know when the publication is available for download. So can we have the first question on screen? Good afternoon. Tell please which positions does mobility allowance include? Mobility allowance is just an amount of money which is included in your salary to compensate for the fact that you have to move to another country. So you will receive it together with the living allowance as a salary, as basic salary. And how you spend your salary, it's entirely up to you, and we will never ask you to give us a list of things to spend it on. So there are no specific budgetary positions there. Does family allowance apply even if the applicant's spouse gets a job in Poland? Yes. Would you accept applicants who do not have a PhD upon submission but upon the start of the project? Yes, if you do not have a PhD by December the 15th, you apply as a person without a PhD. You will have to document 4 years of equivalent research experience. And if the project is granted, and by then you already have your PhD, you will be able to change your data in the submission system anytime it becomes relevant. Could a medical project with examining of the patients take part in POLONEZ BIS? Anna, could you answer that, please?
Yes, of course. I would like to confirm that, of course, all medical projects are invited to be submitted in POLONEZ BIS program, and we support this kind of project if they do not have the commercial use, if they are not non-commercial trial, and we encourage you also to take into consideration, if it is possible, to plan for 2 years only the research which are going to examine patients. So this is one, and of course, if you would like to correctly prepare the project, please try to plan it that way to provide any part of the basic science aspect in this application, because it's welcome and it's good to plan. So of course we invite all medical projects, even those which examine patients, but please be sure that they do not have the commercial use, and explain that in the ethical form. There is a special section where this kind of studies should be explained.
Thank you. Does the publication require that the PI was the first author? No, it doesn't. Can I apply for POLONEZ BIS 3 if I am accepted to work at the university, which is supposed to be a host institution on October the 5th, 2022? Can I choose another host institution for my application? Now, if you are accepted to work on the basis of an employment contract and not a civil law contract, then you will not be able to apply for POLONEZ BIS at this institution. So you can take the employment contract at the university in October, but your POLONEZ BIS 3 application would have to indicate a different host, which means that if you are granted funding, you will have to change institutions because you will not be able to have 2 jobs at 2 different institutions concurrently. I finished my PhD in 2010. I was doing research till 2017. Since then, I'm a teacher and I would like to come back to research. Am I eligible for Polonez 3? Yes, it looks like you are. You are a PhD holder. In the proposal, when we ask for research track record, we're looking at publications from the period of the 10 years before the launch of the call. So this period will still cover quite a bit of your research work. The research track record also has a part where you describe your CV. So this is where you explain your teaching career. And also in the career development plan, I would recommend when you describe your goals that the goals should perhaps refer to your plan to come back to research and how Polonez will help you reestablish yourself as a researcher. But yes, it looks like you're eligible. Can the PI recruit co-investigators who are not members of the host institution or not living in Poland or in Europe? Yes, you can recruit co-investigators as they are needed for the specific tasks. And your project team can be remote. So you can delegate some tasks to co-investigators who will stay abroad for the whole duration of their task implementation. Those co-investigators will have to sign some kind of agreement with the host institution in order to be paid, right? So the general answer is yes. Can a previous Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Fellow become eligible for this call? Yes, you can be eligible if you were an MSCA Fellow before. Can some budget be applied for developments of the host institute? I'm not quite sure what is meant by the development of the host institute. So if I could ask you to elaborate on this question in an email to us, perhaps, and then we will answer. I guess, yes. So if just write us an email on that, okay, with some explanations. Thank you. What positions should PI be employed at, postdoc or assistant professor? This is up to the host institution, and it is really difficult to say because, now, first of all, postdoc is not a position that Polish employment system has. So we use, at the National Science Center, we use the term postdoc only when it applies to a certain career stage after the PhD, but such a position does not exist in Poland as such. It depends on the host institution. Also in a way that if it's not an academic institution, the names of the positions could be quite different. Basically, the National Science Center does not have any specific recommendations for the names of the positions. What is important is that the description of your job should match 100% your tasks in the Polonez BIS grant, and you should be paid the amounts that are budgeted for the salary of the Polonez BIS PI. So as long as you carry out the project that we agreed to fund, it doesn't matter what your position is called. If it turns that I will not win this grant, will it be possible to apply for Polonez BIS 4? It will not be possible to apply for Polonez BIS 4 because we only have 3 calls in this edition of our grant with the European Commission. It is quite possible that in 2 years' time we will be able to win another grant, and then perhaps there will be some kind of continuation of the program. But if you do not win POLONEZ BIS, you will be able to apply for other funding instruments that we have at the National Science Center, such as Opus or Sonata BIS, depending on your career stage. Yes, I guess that I'm looking at Barbara because she just switched. Barbara, you switched your camera on. Would you like to add something to?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So next question, please. Is there any international speaker, someone who's not Polish, could say about the living experience in Poland as non-Polish native? Now, unfortunately, with this webinar, we do not have guests who are not Polish. But the recordings of our previous webinars are available on National Science Center's YouTube channel, and we had non-Polish citizens, previous fellows, sharing their experiences with us then. And also when you go to those webinars and open the presentations, you will see their emails, which they were kind enough to share with everybody. So if you have any specific questions, you could just contact them based on the information that was published with the previous webinars.
Can I add something to this one?
Does the host institution have to fill out any documents related? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I wanted to comment
on that one. I think.
You cannot hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay. So I wanted to comment on that one because all the the rank lists are publicly available. So there are the names of people from different countries who got the Polonez fellowship. So I think you can contact them directly and get your answers to your specific questions.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Barbara. There was some glitch on my part, and unfortunately, I didn't hear what you were saying. Sorry, but thank you anyway for answering that question. Does the host institution have to fill out any documents related to the application process? Yes, there are 2 such documents for all host institutions. So one of those is the host institution capacity form, which we discussed. Another one, this is more for the mentor to sign. There's a declaration for the mentor that he or she is ready to take responsibility for coaching you throughout your project. Also, host institutions who are not from the public sector will have some more documents to complete. A list of documents that need to be uploaded together with the proposal is given in the guide for applicants on page 14, where we also indicated which of those documents have to be signed and by whom. So if in doubt, please refer to the guide for applicants. Is it possible to apply to POLONEZ BIS 3 and later to apply for another NCN scholarship such as Sonatina? Yes, it's possible. In fact, we encourage you to do so. It takes time to get the next grants. So hopefully your POLONEZ BIS and another NCN grant will not overlap. If they do, you will not be able to get the full-time salary from both grants, but you can always apply, yes. How high are the chances to get the grant in linguistics? This is very difficult to answer. Linguistics is on the list of our panels. I have made a quick check before, and altogether in the 10 years of its operation, the National Science Center funded over 900 grants that put linguistics in the keywords. But in Polonez, in the previous Polonez, we had 3 grants within the linguistics area. As for Polonez BIS 1, we already have 2 PIs dealing with linguistic problems. So it is quite obviously very difficult for us to say how many applicants there were altogether. I do not have that statistics, but generally, yes, we do fund linguistics. This happens to be my major as well, so I'm very much for funding projects on linguistics. I'm a retired professor emeritus, I'm 72. Do I have any chance in case I apply? You do have a chance because the program itself cannot, and the reviewers and the experts, they cannot make any reference to the actual age. So there's always a change. There's no age limit for applicants. However, you have to consider the career development plan and the fact that the experts are going to look at how the grant, how the Polonez BIS fellowship will impact your future career. So this might be a bit difficult to answer in your situation. Perhaps the knowledge transfer may counterbalance the career development problem, but it will be up to the experts and reviewers to decide. Do we need to submit no objection certificate if we are working? NCN does not require the no objection certificate. As far as I know, Polish embassies or consulates do not require the certificate either, so there should be no problem. Do we need to select the host only from the list given? Yes and no. If you mean the list given in the call text, the list given in the call text does not refer to any particular host institutions. It's a list of different types of institutions. So in that sense, yes, you have your host institution has to be of the type which is listed in the call text. But you can choose any particular host institution that fits one of the types. So if you look in the partner search tool, for example, you do not have to choose any of the institutions that's there. Institutions publish their expressions of interest voluntarily. It is not mandatory for the institutions. So the list in the partner search tool is incomplete in the sense that it does not give you an overview of all possible institutions in Poland. Can the project commence in 2024 instead of November 2023? At the point of proposal submission, we had to choose 3 potential dates only. This is for technical reasons because the budget for the PI salary has to be calculated in reference to particular number of months in a given year. But we try to be flexible once the funding decisions are issued. Should there be any problems with the dates that you indicated in the proposal, you can always apply to the National Science Center's director with the request to move the dates, and we usually agree if the postponement is not too big. So, for example, if you start in the first half of 2024, we should be able to accommodate that. Can the mentor in Polonez be the PI in other project at the same time? Yes. Can I include the fund salary for postdocs in the proposal? Polonez BIS does not have a separate position for a postdoc. And I mentioned before that the postdoc position does not really appear in the list of possible positions at different institutions. So if we refer to a person who is give or take 7 up to 12, perhaps up to 12 years after their PhD, yes, such person can be your co-investigator. No problem. I was a visiting researcher at my plant host university for 12 months, but I was not employed. Can I apply? If there was no employment contract, generally you will be able to look at this university as your host institution. As for 12 months, we would have to look at the particular dates. Right. So if you did not stay in Poland for more than 12 months, you are eligible under the mobility criterion. So it should be doable. Which position gets to selected candidate? Is it postdoc, fellow, or scientist? Now, within the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, we would normally, at the National Science Center, we would refer to you as a Marie Skłodowska-Curie fellow. But as explained before, the name of the actual position that you are given at your host institution depends to a large extent on the internal regulations at that institution. So it would be a research position generally. Is a previous co-fund fellow eligible to apply if it was a co-fund different from Polonez or Polonez BIS 1? Yes. And of course, if that co-fund was not with the Polish institution, right? Because the question is very general, but generally, yes, you should be eligible if you fulfill other conditions. How many people will be accepted into this fellowship? Now, with the budget we have, I showed the information at the very beginning. We have 120 positions to offer. We have already offered 50. And the evaluation of proposals under Polonez BIS 2 is still in progress. So it really depends how much money we have left and how many positions we have left after Polonez BIS 2 is completed. After the evaluation is completed. The budget that we have, close to 6 million euros, should be enough to fund around 30 grants, I think. Does the diploma of candidate of science obtained in Ukraine 208 have to be nostrificated for Polonez BIS 3? If this is 2008, then the candidate of sciences does not require nostrification. I would have to make sure using the qualificator, but I'm pretty certain that nostrification will not be required. please talk to your prospective host institution about that. But basically, if you give us the diploma of candidate of sciences as part of your proposal, we'll accept it. It will pass the formal check. Can the previously in Kirkland program fellows apply for POLONEZ BIS 3? Yes. I have a chance to start working at the host institution before the decision on grant proposal will be available, but after the application deadline. Will I be able to continue working at the host institution if I receive the POLONEZ grant? Okay, so from what this tells me is that you will be eligible to apply with this host institution because your employment will not start before the 15th of December 2020. If your employment starts later on, and then you receive the POLONEZ BIS decision to fund your grant, you can, of course, continue working at the host institution, but your tasks will have to change. Because if you accept the POLONEZ BIS grant, your employment contract for the duration of the POLONEZ BIS would have to concentrate only on POLONEZ BIS tasks. So usually, because this happens quite often with different researchers, so what is usually done and what's acceptable is an annex to the previous contract of employment. Can I have, is there any proposal template for POLONEZ BIS 3, like a proposal to follow, or just simply upload PDF files? Now, we use the online submission system, and throughout the guide and in the call announcement, you have multiple references to the online submission system. But we also include the general layout of the proposal template. It's part of our of the call documents, so you can refer to that before you start completing it. And many elements of the proposal are actually completed online. And the PDF files are extras that are typical for the POLONEZ BIS call, but not used in other calls organized by NCM. Is POLONEZ BIS fellow required to teach? Can the host institution make the fellow take up teaching duties? You are not required to teach. The host institution is not allowed to make you do anything that you don't want to do. That's what employers should not be doing. So if there are any hints that they will be forcing you to anything that you don't feel like doing, this is probably not the right host institution for you. Teaching tasks may be undertaken during POLONEZ BIS if you feel that they develop you as an academic, because this is for many a valid point. In terms of payment, this is not what the question asks, but I'll explain. Your contract will be, your POLONEZ BIS contract is for doing research. But if you agree to teach, you may take up some teaching and then sign an extra civil contract for a module or two, if you so choose. Is it possible in the frame of POLONEZ BIS to continue participation in the collaboration project which I am working on at current institution? Should this be the case, we would like you to contact us and talk about it in detail, because it all depends on the workload, and sometimes tasks can be moved around. Generally, the European Commission wants fellows to work exclusively on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie grant, but sometimes it's possible to negotiate with the Commission. So cases like that have to be taken on individual basis. How mentored relatively low age index will impact the project evaluation. Now, we do not ask mentors or principal or applicants to quote age index. Citation numbers are included, I believe, for particular publications which are featured in the proposal, but we're not looking at age index at all. The section of the proposal is still called the research track record, but there are open text fields where the mentor will be able to describe his or her career, even if it's more technology oriented. So, and how it will impact the project evaluation, or if the technology orientation is a good fit for what your project is about and for your career development, then the experts will be happy. If it's not the best fit, then the experts may decide otherwise. How many people can be involved in one team of the project? There is no limit is given for the number of members in a research team. You have to remember that the salaries that you choose to pay to the team, plus all the other research costs, cannot cost you more than the equivalent of 100,000 euros. So this is one indirect limitation. What should I write in the project schedule if my field research, data collection, analysis, other actions are not possible to be started before next spring, and not because of the specificity of the project and the research object? That's a tough one. Why don't you write to us? And because we'll have to consult in this, because at this point it is not possible to indicate a different date than November the 1st. You may need to do some preparatory work before you undertake the tasks that are due next spring. It's very difficult to answer without having more data on this. So please write us an email. After selection of grant, how many days do you give for joining? Where the decisions will be issued no later than at the beginning of June. And the decision asks you to prepare and send back to the National Science Center the draft of the funding agreement within 2 months. And of course, the project starts on the date indicated in the proposal. So we will want you to start working on the agreement within the 2 months, but if in the proposal you say that you want to start in November, then you start in November. Can POLONEZ BIS fellows simultaneously or just after receiving the fellowship apply for other grants, for instance, to fund additional person? You can apply as a PI yourselves. If you would like to apply for grants to fund additional persons, this is a tricky question, because if this is a person that should work on POLONEZ BIS, then this person should be funded from your POLONEZ BIS grant. But basically, there are no limits as to applying for other grants. right? And we understand that the application process and the evaluation process is a bit long always. So basically, if you get funded, then let us know and we'll see if this is not a problem. And of course, there should be no double funding of tasks or people doing the same tasks. But you're always allowed to apply. The question about mobility allowance as a part of salary, is this money for travel from native country to Poland only, for travel to second institute and conference? Thank you. As I explained before, mobility is an extra element of your salary which compensates for the fact that you have to move to a different country. But it will be paid to you on a monthly basis throughout the 2 years of your fellowship. And because it is your salary, whatever you spend it on, it's up to you. My research will require national travel around Poland as part of my fieldwork. I'm not planning on having a car. Would an estimate on train bus tickets be appropriate? Yes. Please tell the correct option to choose while creating the OSF account. PhD holder can choose Philosophia doctor to register themselves, as rest options only either bachelor or other options. Basically, if this is only about creating an account in the submission system, you do not have to indicate the particular title at this point. So it doesn't matter to us how you register in the OSF system at this point, because the proposal itself asks you to indicate if you are a PhD holder or not. Also, your OSF system, in case you would want to use it for other grants later on, you can always come back to your profile in the OSF system and change your personal data. So don't worry too much about it at this point. Do I have to be in Poland at the time of application? No. It would be nice to meet with other Polonez fellows in biology, chemistry, physics to cooperate. Do you organize such meetings regularly? Now, as indicated before, we have a kickoff meeting planned for each batch of fellows recruited in those 3 calls. We are also planning to have a POLONEZ BIS conference, POLONEZ BIS Fellows Forum, and this will happen in 2024. When all the fellows are already in Poland. During the training sessions that Barbara was telling you about, there are also going to be special networking events organized. So that's what we do. And of course, if Polonez fellows want to meet, this can always be arranged, I guess, without or with National Science Center, as you please.
And this is what we do.
In the proposal form template, general information, point 5 acronym, the acronym of what? We mean acronym as just a shorter name that we could use to refer to your project. We are planning to publish a catalog of projects, and sometimes the project names, the titles of your research can be quite complicated. So the example you give is perhaps not so good an idea because it's difficult to pronounce. But if you can think about some kind of identification of your project that would be attractive to the readers and at the same time could tell the people who perhaps are not academics themselves, can indicate what the project perhaps is about, we would be happy to accommodate. So it doesn't have to be the first letters of each and every word that happens to be a part of your project title, but you can pick and choose to create words that we can then use as acronym to refer to your project without quoting the full title. State aid. For state aid, please talk to your institution. Normally for universities, the funding from National Science Center is not state aid. If you would like to see a free form for such declaration, please write us an email and we'll forward one. And no, it doesn't have to be submitted separately. If your answers are no, you don't have to submit anything. If it is state aid, then the institution will know what they have to submit, and actually the electronic submission system, if you take that, yes, this is state aid, the electronic submission system will immediately generate a number of templates for the institution to download and complete. In case of planned collaboration with researchers within the EU, are the letters of intent required at this stage? No. Ethics issues. Before I answer that, I just wanted to say that it's 3:15 already. We are prepared to continue for, let's say, 5 more minutes. But because we only agreed to be here for 2 hours, so perhaps some people have to leave. So if you have to leave, feel free to do so. Thank you very much for participating. We will be answering all the questions in writing anyway. Ethics issues. The institute I'm planning to do the research has all the permissions for scientific research, including GMO. Shall I apply for such permissions individually? Anna, can you answer that?
Yes, of course. In this particular section, you should provide all information which are necessary for this project. So each ethical approval, each ethical permissions should be mentioned in this section, just to underline that the institution has the right and the correct permissions and approvals. And of course, I think that this is from the institution also side to support you if your research will require the additional approvals, and if there are any additional requirements to conduct this project. If not, of course, please remember to mention about that, to describe it briefly in this section, to let our experts know that you are aware of the subject and all necessary documents are provided for the research to enable it to start you to conduct this research in Poland.
Thank you. In the form compliance with the eligibility criteria, there is the proposal ID number, at which point the ID is assigned to the proposal. When you generate your proposal in the OSF submission system, so the moment you generate your proposal online, you will see in the top left corner the ID number already there. So you are assigned this number at the very start of your work in the electronic submission system. Can the family situation be updated after the project has been approved? If the kid will not be born by the application deadline, can family allowance be requested later? No, unfortunately, you can only request the family allowance at the very beginning. But I mean, the question in the proposal is, will your spouse or partner or children move to Poland with you for at least 3 months during the implementation of the project? So even If you're expecting the child to be born after the application deadline, you can check yes next to this person, and then you'll be eligible for family allowance. We do not basically, it is the host institution, right, who will know whether you're there with your family or without your family. The National Science Center will not be checking on you in terms of your family. So we believe that what you tell us in the proposal is true. Can we check previously successful proposal open access? Is there any site to check these projects? Yes, all you need to do is go to Open Air, which is a service provided by the European Commission. And if you perform search by project title, if you write Polonez, you will see all 540 something open access publications that were produced. So we'll be putting the link in the answer to be published with the presentation to make it easier for you. Is that it? I think thank you very much for being with us. I think I would. I saw one more question that got lost somewhere there, and it was also about family allowance. And the question was about family status. Similarly to the question about children, we do not ask fellows to provide us with birth certificates. We do not provide. We do not ask fellows to provide us with any documents that confirm your marital status. Yes, that's the question about being divorced and then deciding to get back together again. We ask you if your spouse or partner will be with you for more than 3 months during your project. So if you can truly and honestly answer yes, then you so answer in your project and you're eligible for family allowance, and we do not ask you to provide any documents to prove the partnership status. With that, I think we reached the end of all the questions. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, for staying till the end. Thank you, Barbara, for sharing your experience with us. Thank you, Anna. I would also like to thank Piotr Malinowski, who's with us, although you cannot see him, but he's helping us in technical terms. So please feel free to contact the Polonez BIS team. Make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter to stay on top and to stay in touch. And I hope to see you all during the interviews for Polonez BIS 3. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.